South Africa will release the consumer price inflation print for August in about half an hour or so after falling to 4.6% in July. Now, it sparked hopes that the South African Reserve Bank could cut interest rates by at least 25 basis points at its Monetary Policy Committee meeting tomorrow. And business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo joins us to look at how consumers have been impacted by high inflation and interest rates. And Ntokozo, it's not been an easy 2 years for households, and certainly everyone will be looking for a reprieve on interest rates.
Good morning, Iman. Indeed, and as we're chatting during the break and you mentioned cocoa butter, I just thought of how my own money habits have changed, and I no longer can afford to buy, processed cocoa butter, but turning to raw cocoa butter to just make that money stretch a little bit further. But certainly some of the personal finance experts that we've been speaking to saying it is certainly a reprieve, but how long it actually makes a real difference and a real dent in consumers' life is yet to be seen. Because as we know, just one bad month, Iman, can really set off someone's finances. But ahead of that CPI print and us looking forward to hear from Reserve Bank Governor tomorrow, I am now with Gugu Sitaki, who is a wealth manager as well as managing director at Creed Wealth. Thank you so much for talking to us. Now, as we just said in the discussion with Iman, a tough 2 years for most South Africans. But talk us through some of the money habits that have also been not great money habits that we've been making that just add to the inflationary pressure and as well that interest rate pressure that we've been experiencing over the past 2 years.
Yeah, it really has been a tough 2 years for consumers. What we have seen, which is quite scary, is that a lot of people are falling victim to scams, to schemes. I often get questions from clients and random individuals actually about certain schemes that have popped up, and they are popping up quick and fast, where people are promised unrealistic returns on their hard-earned money. So that is quite a scary one. I find that a lot of people tend to panic during times like these, and then you see good habits that have been instilled in the past actually fall out the window. So I'm finding that a lot of clients are struggling to budget effectively. Budgeting actually reduces the potential of you making really, really bad financial decisions. It stops you from falling victim to schemes, as I've just mentioned. So there are a lot of scary things that are happening right now, including a rise in debt, personal debt and credit card debt. People are having to make do with very little income in a high inflation and high interest rate environment, and they're turning to debt actually to make ends meet, which is quite scary.
Certainly, and we are, Gugu, in Wales Month, which is really should be about preparing legacy and so on. But before we get to that, if we do see an interest rate cut on Thursday, speaking about that budgeting, how then should people move around that to ensure that, their pockets are not hit and that money does stretch? What mistakes should they avoid making when we see that interest rate cut?
I think the extra cash that people are going to experience back in their pockets should be used to clear a lot of the debt that people have consumed in the recent past. I think personal debt and credit card debt can be quite expensive, and so consumers would do well to actually clear that as quickly as possible with the extra debt, and then they can then start to focus on rebuilding on lost time.
And now let's get to Wales and everything around that, because it really is about legacy, people putting in the years to work, struggling through, not really enjoying that money that they work for. But once they actually get to an age of retirement and an age of where they actually pass on, what's the importance of leaving a legacy, but also teaching children from a young age on how to really build on good money habits, that no matter what the environment is, they are able to navigate through that?
That's exactly it, Ntokozo. I think one of the best things that you can do for the next generation is to teach them good financial habits, instill good financial values in them. And there's lots of different ways that you can do it. There can be fun and interesting ways that you can teach children about money that make sense to them. For example, we have an event coming up soon. It's called Coin Your Talent Market, where children are going to be taught how to earn money. They're going to be running stalls, and then with that money, they have to then be responsible with it. They have to save, they have to share, and they have to invest that money, which is quite exciting. So there's many ways in which children can be engaged in good money habits.
And just talking about that retrieve, how long does it generally take to see it trickle down to, lower food prices? We are heading to holiday season. People are already starting to plan for time with family and so on. And a lot of money usually goes, over that period. How do people then be sensible around that time and not get overexcited that, things are now cheaper, things, I'm saving a little bit in my installments, let me go spend over the festive season?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the planning and the budgeting conversation again. I think as soon as you start to experience the cash back in your pocket, I think it would be a prudent thing to do to actually allocate those funds accordingly. So as soon as that money hits, I think you do best to plan accordingly and allocate it accordingly.
Gugu, thank you so much for starting off this conversation for us today. Of course, Gugu Sitaki is the Managing Director and Wealth Manager for Wealth Creed that is based in Sandton. And Iman, and I do plan to spend my day speaking to South Africans as well on the streets just to see where they've really felt those pressure points and how they're thinking about, how to plan better and budget better when we do start seeing interest rate cuts, and if, that inflation really does moderate into that target band that the SARB has set. Of course, several issues that consumers still face, as Gogo mentioned, those high debt levels, and we are going to hear from experts from that end on how consumers are moving in that regard, Iman. So, as you said, in the next 20 minutes or so, Statistics South Africa will then release that CPI print that just will give also the SARB an indication of whether it can continue cutting interest rates after the September 19 meeting, Iman.
Yeah, well, one hopes that cycle will just continue for a little while longer, and especially when you juxtapose that with the withdrawals from the two-pot system, right? I think the estimation is just over 4 billion rand in withdrawals. It just shows you how cash-strapped people are, because the conventional wisdom is leave the money there, you're going to need it for retirement. The fact that people are drawing early, and many of them in polls that were done previously is saying they're withdrawing to sort out debt. So South Africans are finding themselves between a rock and a hard place today. And Ntokozo Khumalo, thank you very much.